we tend to believe that Italians live well.
But I think that people didn't get it very well. Nature knows no borders. So nature works well, works better if it's connected.
And it's actually great that for the local population there is interest in these topics.
Even nature has some rules. That you cannot consider nature as your own garden.
Hello everybody, my name is Alexandra, your personal green advisor. Welcome to my channel, and today with me I have a guest, Filippo Favilli, who is the geographer, naturalist and senior researcher from the EURAC research, Bolzano, Italy. Welcome Filippo, thank you very much for participating today with us on the interview. So can you from the beginning elaborate a little bit this current ecological situation of Italy for us?
The situation of nature, let's say, in Italy is not that bad, I have to say, because Italy is one of the regions in Europe having the higher biodiversity, because it's a peninsula going from north to south, and so it includes many different environments. You can go from the Alps to the Apennines to the desert, actually. And we have also beautiful islands, the sea. So there is a lot of biodiversity to be preserved in Italy.
But what are the current ecological problems in Italy, if there are any? And what are the most important from them?
Well, as in any country, as in every country, there are problems related to the conservation of biodiversity. I can say that in Italy we have the good thing is that we have actually a lot of protected areas, and protected areas are actually the main pillars of biodiversity conservation. So we have them from north to south in all the different regions of different kinds. We have a lot of Natura 2000 sites. We have UNESCO sites, either cultural but also environmental UNESCO sites. So, in theory, the situation is very good. The problem, as in many countries, is that the protected areas are not well connected one another. So, from the point of view of the connectivity of the landscape, we have some problems because the laws that regulates the connectivity it's up to the regions. We have 20 regions, actually there are 21, and each one of them can do their own laws about, not on biodiversity conservation, because these are regulated by the EU, but on the connectivity. I guess that your followers know what connectivity is, ecological connectivity.
Well, basically, I have to mention that we are together with Filippo are now in Visegrad on this beautiful conference, and I got to know him because of the connectGREEN project, where they are working on the expanding ecological corridors between the natural protected areas in Carpathian region, in particular, and in the whole Europe.
Yes.
In general.
And ecological connectivity, in few words, is just the way how we can allow the animals, the wildlife, to move freely in their environment. So to have areas where they can rest, where they can breathe and eat, and so how the ecological continuum can be maintained. So nature works well, works better if it's connected. Because if you have only islands of protected areas inside of a matrix of human activities, nature suffers, and also the ecological processes are really highly affected. And since we depend on the ecological processes, so also called ecosystem services, if nature doesn't work well, we also our health will be affected. So coming back to the thing that you asked me, we have this problem of the fact that protected areas are not well connected to one another, and this depends on the fact that connectivity has not been taken into account in the laws of the Italian country, and also because the people don't know so much about it.
maybe then you can elaborate more why this ecological connectivity is important, not just for the species, it's understandable they have to move from one natural protected area to another, but also for people. Why we should think about it. And maybe you can also show some examples of the positive work in the ecological connectivity.
The connectivity is needed, as I said, because nature needs to be connected, needs to have a continuum. If it's interrupted, the species cannot meet other members of their species, and they can go to extinction, locally or in general. And this, it's a pity, no? When you lose some species because they cannot move from one environment, or if they try to move, they meet big roads or big urban areas. As I said, nature connected works better. Biodiversity, so the diversity of species in a certain environment is higher, and nature works better. The more diverse is, the better it is. This is a lesson that also us as humans should learn, the fact that being diverse, so the diversity is good for us, it's good for the health. Genetic diversity helps to fight, let's say, these illnesses coming from the genetic homogeneity. So the problem in Italy is that there is a very low environmental consciousness and environmental knowledge. So the environment has always been placed in a second or third place, let's say, compared to the economic development.
Does this shortage of environmental awareness depend on the quality of life of Italians, on the standards of life? We tend to believe that Italians live well. You have a good climate, you have a good nature, you have a good standard of life, good salaries. Am I not right? So what are the reasons of this such a low environmental awareness?
Okay, first it's good to see that Italians are so well seen outside. If we make comparison with other countries, there are always countries who lives better or that lives worse, and that comparisons are not. I don't like comparisons because every situation, every country is unique. We can say that we live well, but we could live better. Okay, especially in our relationship with nature. The thing comes from the education of children that they get at school, because we had a reduction in the money allocated for the education during the years by the different governments.
Then I have also a question. Do you have currently certain programs related to the ecology in schools? Like, do you teach children in schools and universities about sustainability issues, how to be a conscious citizen, how to recycle, how to separate? What are the impacts?
I got it. Unfortunately, not in official programs. This knowledge comes from local initiatives or projects. So there are always more projects, EU projects, but also local projects that involve children, students in their activities, showing them how to recycle, how to deal with problems related to the presence of wildlife, how to coexist with wildlife. Because in many areas we had the return of the wolf. This is just as an example. The wolf disappeared in Italy in the 19th century and beginning of 20th century because of it's really extermination, how can I say? Because they were considered very harmful for the sheep, for the cows, and so for the local economy. So they shoot them until the 70s of the previous century, and then it was started to be protected. So the return of the wolf created a lot of social tensions, because farmers started to feel unprotected by the government, and that they have to deal with this issue of the wolves killing some sheep or just by themselves. And so we had many episodes of illegal killing, of poaching, and sometimes very, let's kind of say, bloody stuff. Yeah. And this thing goes to the children also, because the children in these areas, they grow up in these families, and so they get this information from the family that comes from a conflict of interest, actually. So they don't have, in many cases, a pure, clear, correct information about the species. It's always in relationship with the economy. And this is good on one hand, because the presence of large carnivores in many areas could actually enhance also the local economy, but is seen as harmful for the local economy. We are working on that. We are actually working on this topic, on the relationship of humans and wildlife in the Alps, in the Apennines, in the Carpathians, and we have seen that the children or young students have really such an open mind. I thought they have maybe some influences from their family, and they discuss, they want to know, they want to understand what is the correct thing, and we have seen that they have a lot of care for the environment where they live, and they would like to know more. So even if school doesn't do its job in this case, we are lucky to have a lot of NGOs and projects that deal with this issue, and also teaches this ecological transition, this Green Deal that we have in the European community now, where each country has to make this ecological transition. So the thing is, in every project that I've done, is that the people want to be involved in the decision process, the decision-making process. And so there are many ways to do that with public participatory approaches and workshops.
Basically, that was my next question, because you said that you are raising environmental awareness, and it's actually great that for the local population there is interest in these topics. So which tools do you use? Just workshops telling about the importance of biodiversity, or some I don't know, interactive excursions? Which type of tools?
There are many ways. We have done many meetings with the schools. So we went in the schools talking about the wolf, giving just, for example, the basic information about the species, how it lives, what it eats, and so on. Or more at larger scale. So the importance of connectivity, what does it mean, ecological connectivity, how is connectivity in a certain area, and if they know about it, about connectivity itself, and the importance of connectivity for nature biodiversity. So we had meetings in schools, workshops with the students, in which they can raise questions. There was a lot of nice and hot discussions also with them, because they like to talk. They want really to express their opinions, especially high school students, because they start to have their own ideas in mind. They start to,
Was there just the students who are somehow related to the environmental studies, who at least heard what is ecology, or from any sort of background?
any kind of school. We went also in technical schools, or in high school. I mean, any kind of school, because we believe that the conservation of nature should be inside of each person, because it's each person's task, and we all need to contribute. Other ways are making excursions with them, so to bring them in places where all the nature is very nice to see, yeah, very good, but also where there are problems, to show them the problem, and show them to make them see with their eyes what is a conflict, what is a barrier for connectivity, and how it can be overcome. Then we made posters, we made a comic book for children. This is for small children, let's say, where we, through a simple story of a guy going in the mountain for a holiday, he has so many problems with the environment because of his ignorance, let's say, on how to deal with nature, because he was using nature as his own garden, or he was thinking to be free to do whatever he wanted. And then through his negative experiences, and with the help of a guide of the park where he was, he understands that even nature has some rules, and that you cannot consider nature as your own garden. It can be dangerous, can be really dangerous, or can be wonderful, but as you follow rules inside of a city, no, because you don't want to be hit by a car or other things, also nature needs to has its own rules, and we need to know, because in this way we respect nature how it is, as it is, and not we don't adapt it to our needs. It should be the other way around. Nature is there, and we need to adapt to nature, to what are its rules and its processes.
Can I have a personal question to you now? How did it happen with you that you started to work with the sustainability issues, with the wildlife and conservation and biodiversity protection?
I think it started when I was a child, because I've been a Boy Scout for many years. During the Boy Scouts, you stay a lot of time in nature, and you learn how to deal with problems or issues just by yourself or with few resources. And also you learn how to leave the lowest impact in the place where you go. Then when I needed to decide what university doing, then I said, I want to know nature. I want to know how it works, the different aspects of nature, how they interrelate. So I studied natural sciences. And then since 10 years, I started to work in EURAC, and there I learned much more in deep the real importance of the connection nature and humans, because you cannot study nature only nature, because you can do it because the species you can describe it, but if you want to act for conservation, you need to put humans and nature together and find each part, its space, and how they can interact for the benefit of both.
I had a very interesting conversation yesterday with one of the participants of this conference. Yeah, it was a wetland conservation specialist from Netherlands, and we were discussing the possibility of our economy and our society to transform to more sustainability way. And he said that he thinks that unfortunately, he was actually very pessimistic, and he said that he thinks that unfortunately the only thing which can push humanity for a change is a disaster. Somehow what happened last year, for example, in Germany because of floods, and then the mentality of the people change. So do you think that disaster is the only thing which can change our approach towards the environment, or we can make it somehow in a less painful way?
Well, we have seen also with the COVID crisis, actually, because this kind of illness, this kind of crisis from virus, it was not the first one coming from our bad relationship with wildlife. Other illnesses come from wildlife, this zoonosis. We focused on this because it was a worldwide thing, but actually we had already many other illnesses related to wildlife. But I think that people didn't get it very well, how it happened and why, because it's our worldwide style of life that creates these problems. Also the floods, we have every year, also in Italy, we have many floods, especially in the Padania plain, because there everything was transformed to agriculture. There is an intensive agriculture there, And so every year we have always this problem, or in the south, because of the removing of trees from the hills, we had situations where the hill really moved down to the city or to the valley and killing a lot of people also. So disasters can help, but I think they are not the way to make people understand, because
So what is the way?
because if you have a crisis, people think how to get out of it in the less time possible and make the situation back as it was before. No, also for the COVID, we say, we want to come back to the situation, not to the previous situation. But it's the previous situation that created this situation. Thing is, for me, it's always education and research. So all the countries, all in the world, we should allocate more money to schools, especially to very young children, and to research, because we have seen that it's research that is saving us from this COVID, and education can save us from future crises, from future situations of bad building, because floods happen because people build close to a river or removing trees from the hills. So there are always reasons, and we are, in the most of the case, the problem. So yeah.
Can you please tell a little bit more about EURAC Research Company? What are you doing? On which projects you are currently working?
Yeah. Okay, EURAC Research is a private research center in Bolzano, northern Italy, in South Tyrol, close to Austria, let's say, northeastern part of the Alps. It's a research center on mountains. We have many different departments working on different aspects of the mountain. My institute is the regional development, so we work on more at local scale or regional scale on all the aspects related to the local development. So from transportation, tourism, agriculture, demography, and nature. I'm in charge of the nature part of my institute. And we started working on connectivity, ecological connectivity, but then in the years we have seen, as I said before, the importance of the human dimension inside of connectivity. So now we are working on a project that connects the Alps with the Dinaric Mountains, where we do the analysis of the connectivity through maps and programs. But also we wanted, and the COVID impeded us, we hope to do it still, to go there and also have workshops with the stakeholders talking about connectivity and how connectivity could enhance their economy, the local economy, and especially the transboundary aspect. So connectivity, nature knows no borders. So our administrative borders, nature doesn't care, and not even species. But a species could be protected in one country and not protected in another country. And so also the normatives and the laws have to be the same somehow, and the attitude of people have to be the same. And connectivity has to continue over the borders. So we are working on this, and also on a project about the Carpathians, about the management capacities. So the capacities of protected areas manager to cooperate more one each other, and to create more this network of protected areas. Because through this, you can exchange information, exchange instruments, and cooperate in projects, and connect also then physically the different protected areas.
You said that you also organize lots of workshops You are planning to organize lots of workshops for the national government, for the national municipalities. This is unfortunately a problem which we are facing here in Hungary, that the government is not really ready to listen. They agree with everything what we are saying, but they are not ready to implement. So what is the situation in Italy?
It depends where you are, because from the national point of view, we respond to the European normatives, so we do our job. But since the part of the legislation is delegated to the regions, then it's up to the regions to do something or not. And we have very good examples of regions working well for conservation and others really bad. Unfortunately, there is not something that unites them, in this process.
Being in one country doesn't unite people.
Not for some kind of legislations, because some things are delegated to the regions. There is not a national plan. So if you had a national plan for connectivity and then you say, this is the national plan, each region has to implement it in different ways, but you have to implement it. Then it will be different, because you have a hat of load, but in Italy we don't have it.
As our channel called GreenAdvisor, so I would ask you to give an advice for our audience. How can they personally do something to increase the connectivity between the national protected areas, between the countries? Your personal advice.
Okay, we believe that, let's say, the large public, the people, let's say normal people, I don't know how to say it, the lay people, or those who don't work directly in conservation cannot do anything, and this is wrong. Because connectivity is not only on connecting physically things or landscapes, it's always on the attitude that you have in regards of wildlife. So I can advise you to inform yourself as much as possible on the wildlife you have in your area, on its status. You can join some voluntary activities, because there are, I'm sure in any place there are many of them. And you can change slowly your lifestyle, because also the pollution that we do, it harms the nature and then the ecological processes and then our health and so on and so forth. So try to make your impact in the nature as low as possible. And if you go on the internet, you can find the calculation of your carbon footprint. No, you know what the carbon footprint is. So how much CO2 or you produce in your daily activities, and how many planets you need to survive. If you have one or less than one, super. If you have more than one, it means that if everybody had your lifestyle, we need more than one planet to sustain. And you know that we are already using more than what our planet is producing. So do it. Look, carbon footprint, and you can do this test, and then you see. And then few things, maybe don't use the car every day, use public transport, use bikes, recycle, reuse, instead of throwing things away. Try to give them new life. And if you have children, bring them to nature, inside of nature. They love it. They are curious. You will grow people who care for your own environment. And this is the future of conservation.
Thank you very much, Filippo, for this fruitful conversation. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. And I hope you also enjoyed it too. So if you did, please put likes on this video and write in the comment what is the current ecological situation in your country and what are the current most important environmental problems.
And what do you do?
And what you do especially. Thank you very much for this conversation.
Thank you, Alexandra.